Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, the pandemic's impact on the acceleration of digital means that just providing a personalised experience to customers is no longer good enough. We've kind of moved on from that. And in order to succeed and stay one step ahead of the competition, brands actually need to start embracing a data-driven approach to optimise every digital experience based on outcomes. So I wanted to explore this topic a little further, and I've invited Justin Anovick from Optimizely onto the podcast to talk about why it's so important to look beyond just personalization, and also the importance of combining this with experimentation in order to move away from just guesswork and gut decisions, all by using a combination of technology and data to move towards a more scientific approach that will provide customers with the best digital experience possible. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to North Carolina in the US, where Justin is waiting to speak with us about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Justin. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So Justin Anovick, I am a dad of 3, husband to 1, but I think more importantly for this, I am actually, there isn't really anything more important than that. So I could have just stopped it there, Neil. But for the sake of this, I am the Chief Product Officer at Optimizely.
Looking back, like you said, that is the most important thing in the world. But what I'm really interested in as well is your origin story. I mean, where did your passion for technology come from? And ultimately, what was it that put you on the path that you're on today? Was it part of a master plan, or was there a healthy amount of serendipity in there as well?
Yeah, so I definitely don't have master plans. My daughter is a rising junior in college, and she keeps changing her major. And I said, I still don't have any idea what I want to do. So it's kind of evolved. But the origin story, I ended up after university, I ended up working at a retail store. It was a one of a kind. It was sports medicine. And I was working as the manager, and I created a website, and we started to sell things online. We got funding, had a great 24 months, and then everything went bust. That was around 99, 2000. And from there, I moved into customer service software. So one of the vendors I had used, I ended up going and working as a CSM, a customer support manager, helping different customers. And I had spent 15 years in the customer service space and loved it because most of the customers that I had worked with, I was a customer of. So it was easy to relate their customer service experiences, the issues that they were having, to the ones that I had with them. And so about 5-6 years ago, I said I really wanted to go back to my original starting point, which was on the e-commerce, web, digital experiences. And obviously a lot had changed in the 16 years since I had been there. But that's where I moved over to here, to Optimizely. I came over a part of the Episerver group, and it's been a great ride over the last 6 years. But I really did miss the front end digital experiences. Definitely felt that this space was where everything is headed. And obviously we've seen that over the last 18 months, but it really started out actually managing the retail store.
So you were creating digital experiences before they were even a thing, back in the days of US robotics modems, GeoCities, Lycos, and Netscape Navigator, right?
I used Front Page and uploaded the websites on a 56K modem.
Oh, man. Do you still miss the sound of a 56K modem?
Not at all. Oh, I was playing it for my kids the other day, and they're like, that is the worst sound ever.
And of course, that path, though, led you to Optimizely. So can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you solve at Optimizely, just for anyone that's hearing about you guys for the first time?
Yeah, so we focus on digital experiences. What we talk about is helping to unlock the digital potential. We have customers ranging from large enterprises like Nike down to mid-market size organizations who are just starting to really get online. And we inherently, because of that, the range of who we work with, we focus on a lot of different problems. One is like a manufacturer distributor who's looking to go digital, and that's absolutely been accelerated over the last 18 months. But there are still organizations who take faxes as orders because they had put so much of their time and effort into a channel strategy or through salespeople going out and working with those different organizations. And they needed to convert online, again, especially over the last 18 months, but really the last 3 or 4 years. So, those organizations that need to go digital. Or we have other organizations who come to us and we've made this sound a little better, but basically they come to us because the highest paid person is making the decision, using their gut, using their opinion to kind of drive the decisions that are happening. So if you think of a rebrand going on and you're redeveloping your digital experience, what do you put on the homepage? What's on the nav bar? How do you lay it out? Well, usually, historically, that's been based on somebody's opinion. Mm-hmm. And usually that highest paid person wins out. So we help focus on using data to actually drive the decisions as to what's done. So how do you know if you want to say, how do you know what drives the most traffic? Is it the word shop? Is it the word catalog? Is it something else? All the way down to that granular level of detail. Without the use of data, it's hard to determine what is the best thing. And again, the highest paid person usually made that decision. And another example is, marketing teams are just struggling, innovating, getting new capabilities, new experiences, new content out, because there's just this inherent friction with development, and it's just hard to make the changes that are needed in order to get a up-to-date, exceptional digital experience.
And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a little bit of research, bit of background on you. Don't worry, I didn't find anything bad at all. But what I did come across is a great quote where you said that companies now need to get personalizing based on the behaviors behind content consumption, even in the case that visitor is completely unknown. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so this definitely comes down to the data, the whole issue with third party versus first party data that's coming up now with what you're able to use, and Google did extend it by a couple of years, but that day is coming where the data that you need in order to drive that experience isn't going to come from a variety of different sources, but ultimately it's kind of even broader than that. It's just all organizations are collecting some types of data, or they should. It ultimately matters if it is an authenticated user or an anonymous user. You can do more the more that you know about that user. But what you're collecting, even in that anonymous situation, is extensive. And personalization can come in many forms. It could be just, what are you showing? What product are you showing? What content are you showing? Is the page different? Using experimentation to help drive different potential options. But it really doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be all based off of the known visitor, the known information that you have, just purely their implicit behavior of where they're clicking and what they're doing. You can easily relate it to other anonymous users that follow the same path and can kind of recommend the right approach without even knowing much about that user.
And I think after 18 months of a global pandemic, most would admit that they're not as patient as they were a few years ago, especially when shopping online, etc., and things like call scripts, email templates, do not reply emails, and support tickets. So just join that long list of frustrations when people are searching for help or a quick answer to a question. And as a result, I think many are increasingly moving away from brands that just offer poor customer experiences in general. So can you tell me more about how the pandemic's impact on the acceleration of all things digital means that providing just a personalized experience to a customer is no longer good enough, really.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. I mean, the acceleration, I mean, it sounds so cliche that everything happens so much faster, but I mean, take those manufacturing distributing customers that we have. I mean, they literally were, in essence, locked out of being able to do business. You couldn't send a salesperson into that organization. What were you going to do? You had to, in a way, in those cases, reinvent that model. And now, because so much is done online and in digital fashion, whether it's through IoT, whether it's an app, whether it's a website, whatever. I mean, you're just collecting so much data these days because just the amount of traffic has increased so much. So what we see is the acceleration is really organizations who say, instead of evaluating something for a year and thinking through and developing out every last possible permutation of what could happen, you got to make a decision in a much shorter time frame, 3 months. You can't take 2 years to implement something. You got to get it up and running in a month, 2 or 3, and really just start testing that process to just see what works and what doesn't, as opposed to having something perfectly launched and you had the time. That's really the big difference that we see, is just that acceleration has led to, I have to do something faster, and I'm okay if certain parts of what I'm doing fails. It's okay to have a failed experiment, or it's okay that your site might be buggy. What you do with it is the thing. Can you immediately turn off that buggy site that you just launched? Can you immediately end an experiment? Can you quickly change the catalog listings on your site? Like, that's where we're at. And even though people have initially potentially a bad experience is also one that has just been sitting static for 2 years. So that's been a very difficult thing, Neil, for organizations to deal with, is perfection versus just change and adjusting as you go.
And I think everybody's kind of suffering with the Netflix effect to a certain degree, because we're all used to now, as our standard expectation, we can pick up a phone, watch a program, then go watch the rest of it on a tablet, then a laptop, and we get the same experience wherever we are and on any device. And we kind of expect that now when we're communicating with brands, whether we're on any of those devices at all, and we just kind of expect it just to continue. And that's the same with messaging apps as well. We might begin by making a call, then go on a website, then WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. So in order to succeed and stay on top ahead of the competition, it's almost like brands need to embrace this data-driven approach to optimize every single digital experience based on outcomes. But I'm curious, do you have any examples or use cases that you can share of how businesses can do just that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the one that immediately came to mind is kind of going back to the previous answer that I had, or the previous comment, that people are just testing things. And this isn't just about like doing an A/B test and showing different variations, right? This is just about launching new capabilities and really seeing how it goes quickly and, adjusting. But we have customers that do something called a painted door test. This is one of the most fascinating things. I'm not sure if you've heard about it.
No.
But basically a painted door is when you launch an idea, but you don't have anything behind it. You're basically gathering intelligence, you're gathering data to see if people are interested in that. So for instance, we had a airline customer last year who were considering launching something like Affirm, or one of those payment processes where you buy now, pay later type of thing. And it wasn't just on the credit card, but they didn't have the time to fully implement it. More importantly, they didn't have the time to do research and to do all these different studies with their customers to see if their customers actually wanted that. So what they did is they literally put a button that said buy now, pay later. And based on who clicked on it, they collected that data and said, hey, thank you, we're considering launching this. They found within the first 3 weeks, they found that most customers were interested in it. And they decided to put that on the top of their roadmap to launch much faster than they ever imagined. That all happens with data. You can't do that using somebody's gut or opinion, using that hippo that we talked about earlier. It's all about the data to determine if you're going down the right path. And I think that that is indicative of a lot of different things that customers are doing these days, is, using the painted door scenario more often to just test if customers are interested in something.
And I think businesses in every industry are now embracing a data-driven approach and using that data in a more specific approach that provides customers with that best digital experience possible. But of course, it's also a fine balance that if you get it wrong, you can appear creepy. So it's a bit of a fine balance. But I'm curious, from everyone that you've been speaking with, all your clients, etc., are there any trends in the kind of conversations that you're having with people and what they're trying to achieve right now?
Yeah, so it comes down to what we're calling these crises of assumptions, and it comes down to still the same thing, that people are just guessing, right? That's the trend. Let's be honest, is to stop guessing, right? There's a lot of technology trends that are out there of delivering different capabilities. There's lots of different trends along those lines, but the most common trend that we see when talking to the C-suite, for instance, is they want to stop guessing. It's not the best option. And, again, we talked about that hippo scenario about, organizations trying to make a decision without that data. But it's just, most customers have these clear outcomes that they're trying to drive towards. But sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes it's not the exact right outcome. And when I talk about outcomes, for instance, an organization, a brand might be looking to increase average order value or reduce bounce rate. So that's great in isolation, but how you do it is important, and how you measure it. So we have a customer, Gardner Supply, who is very brand oriented. And what I mean by that is that they're not just about selling composters online. It's not just about the transaction. What they've seen is the connection of curated content that they create or their customers create, and the relationship to the reduction in bounce rates, the increase in average order value. And those types of connections are important. Historically, they would have to guess to figure out if this is working. Now, with the data that they're able to bring, that we're able to bring, that they're able to gather, helps them drive towards an answer without guessing. But that's really what we at the C-suite is, that's what we've basically narrowed it down to, is stop guessing. That's the biggest trend.
Love that. And is there anything else that particularly excites you about the road ahead, the role of emerging technologies and those digital experiences of tomorrow? Or should I just say, what makes you jump out of bed in the morning and look forward to what's happening in the future?
Yeah, I've been historically very conservative, pragmatic. I've heard so many different things, over the years. Wow, when I say it that way, I guess I really am old. I've seen so many things, Neil. But the things that are exciting are what people were talking about 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Internet of Things is now a reality, right? We have a customer, Fitbit, who launches new code and new capabilities through their apps, all the way to their watches, or in-store displays to your car, to what's going on the screen in the airplane. But the Internet of Things is really actually coming to life. But here's the thing: is that people were talking about it 10 years ago. It was just not accessible for the normal organization. Right. And normal meaning, ones that don't have a team of thousands or a budget of trillions. And so that, to me, is the most exciting thing, is bringing these capabilities that have been talked about forever to the masses, to the organizations who have 3 people that are managing their digital experiences, don't have 5 data scientists to try to figure things out. The technology in the space and where we're moving and others is really helping to, I hate to say it, democratize it, but it's bringing these capabilities to, those organizations that don't have the staff and the budget that you historically needed.
And as a man of a similar age, I've got to admit, I'm still waiting for jetpacks after watching the 1984 Olympics and hoverboards. But, we can.
Exactly.
But we started the podcast talking about your origin story. I'm going to have a bit of fun with you now and ask you, what was the soundtrack to that origin story? We might get an 80s soft rock power ballad in there. I don't know where we're going to go with this, but is there a particular song that has inspired you in your career that helps you get your head in the zone before going on stage, or just a reoccurring song in your career? What would your choice be and why? And we'll add it to our Spotify playlist.
I think I might be the first guest, or maybe the one with the lamest answer. But I grew up a huge sports nerd, and my entire brain was filled with baseball stats. I could have told you, any player, any given year, what they hit, what the number of home runs, the RBIs, whatever stat. And so I always felt that my brain was taken with that as opposed to songs. But here's I think the funny thing. So my wife is she was a commercial music major. So she's been into music her whole life. I listen to music, and it creates this ADD effect where I just start thinking about other things and I don't pay attention to the music. But I actually have 3 important songs that I've used throughout my whole life. So not only was I a sports, a baseball stats nerd, but I grew up playing baseball. And even to today, when I would go and I would pitch, I would be nervous or whatever. Today, when I get up on stage and present, I hum a song in my head, and it's actually the Inspector Gadget theme song. And so that's what I play to help reduce my nerves, and that's what I hum. And my wife, my kids make fun of me incessantly, but it's the Inspector Gadget theme song. But after, with 3 kids and everything, I would sing 2 songs to them every single night. One is Twinkle Twinkle, and the other is Take Me Out to the Ball Game. So those are really the 3 songs that have persisted my whole life, that really can't make a soundtrack very easily.
Man, you battered that out of the park there. And you've also given me earworm. I'm going to have Inspector Gadget theme playing inside my head for the rest of the day. Oh, I love it. And before I let you go, though, for anyone that wants to find out more information about Optimizely, contact your team, etc., what's the best starting point?
Certainly, our website, optimizely.com. I have a couple of different email addresses, but my most favorite is bearded_fool@optimizely.com. That's where all the complaints go. And then, on Twitter and on LinkedIn, I'm just Justin Anovick, and would love to hear from anybody.
Fantastic. Well, so much I loved about our conversation today. I think the big takeaway was the biggest trend is everyone to stop guessing. I completely agree with you on that, but also loved hearing about your story and for leaving me with the earworm of Inspector Gadget. But more than anything, thank you for spending a bit of time with me and sharing that today.
Thanks, Neil.
It's time to stop guessing and use a combination of technology and data to a more scientific approach that will provide customers with the best digital experience possible. Man, when Justin delivered that line, it's just pure gold, isn't it? But I'm curious, how are you overcoming these challenges in your business? And do you have any questions that you'd like to share with us all today, or any experiences or different viewpoints? Whatever it is, my inbox is open to each and every one of you at techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can get me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the usual channels. Just look for me at Neil C. Hughes. So keep those questions coming in, and I cordially invite you to join me again tomorrow, where we'll do it all again. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.